There's a quiet crisis unfolding in organizations right now. You won't find it on any quarterly report. It's not a sudden drop that you can graph. It's quieter than that. It's the sound of commitment evaporating. It's loyalty turning into a transaction. You hear it in the silence of brainstorming sessions where everyone just goes through the motions. You feel it in the deflated, sure, why not, from someone who used to burn with passion. So here's the question. How do you as a leader build something that doesn't just survive the next storm, but makes people want to batten down the hatches with you? Not for a paycheck, but because they believe, truly believe, in the ship, the crew, and you, their captain. We're going to dive into that on this episode of Engage and Inspire. Well, hello again, you beautiful change makers. Welcome back to Engage and Inspire. I'm your host, Scott Lyles. This is the show that rescues leadership advice from the dusty, haunted mansions of outdated theory and moves it into the chaotic, pizza box-strewn startup garage of actual work. Our mission? To pivot the great resignation into the great recommitment. We're doing it with science, empathy, and at times, a dad joke or two. Now, we've been building our HELM framework piece by piece. We started with humility, that's the H, and that's getting your ego off the wheel so you can actually see the waters and the other boats that are out there. Then we installed empathy, that sophisticated navigation system that lets you understand the emotional terrain, the weather patterns inside your team, and what makes every person in your boat tick. Now today, we're forging the anchor, the heavy, unglamorous, yet absolutely vital piece of metal that keeps the whole ship from drifting when the waves get rough, when the market shifts on a dime, or when a slick competitor slides into your star player's DMs. We're on to the third letter, and that letter is L for loyalty. Now I can already hear some of you scoffing and saying, "Loyalty, Scott? Come on. That's so old school. That's gold watches and pension plans. In today's gig economy, loyalty is dead. You can't buy it with a ping-pong table and a fridge full of fancy seltzer." And you know what? You're right. You absolutely 100% cannot buy loyalty. Let's be crystal clear on that. Now, you can rent compliance with a paycheck. You can lease short-term enthusiasm with a flashy bonus, but loyalty, that's different. That's a different currency altogether. The ping pong table is just furniture in the break room. Loyalty is what decides whether someone uses their break to brainstorm a fix for the problem or to secretly polish up their resume and put that open to work ring on their LinkedIn profile. So if we can't buy it, what is it? In the HELM framework, loyalty isn't something you demand from your team. It's something you earn as a byproduct. It's the emotional equity, it's the trust stock that gets deposited into your team's collective bank account when you consistently practice humility and empathy, but with one crucial active ingredient that's stirred into the mix. What is that ingredient, you might ask? Advocacy. So let's flip the script entirely here, all right? Real loyalty isn't about your team being loyal to you. That's a cult, my friends, and please do not drink that Kool-Aid. Healthy, powerful, sustainable loyalty is your team's rock-solid belief that you are loyal to them, that you have their backs, that you see their long-term value, not just their quarterly output. That you will fight for them, defend their dignity, and invest in their future, even when it's inconvenient or politically messy. When they believe that, their commitment to the mission becomes personal. They're not just building your castle, they're defending their home. Now let's get into the data for a second, because building this kind of loyalty isn't just a warm, fuzzy HR concept. It's a massive, hard-nosed, profit and loss strategic advantage, and the numbers don't lie. The research here is a flashing red light with a loud siren and a huge warning sign. Work Institute research suggests that over 75% of the reasons employees leave are preventable. Pause on that. Let that sink in for a minute. 75% of the reasons why employees leave are preventable. That means 3 out of every 4 resignation letters hitting a manager's desk, those people that are walking out the door with all their skills, their client relationships, their tribal knowledge, their exit was preventable. It wasn't a foregone conclusion. It was a leadership failure. And the number one reason they gave? It's not pay. It's a toxic cocktail of feeling undervalued and having no visible path forward. In the language we're using today, that's the direct human experience of a perceived absence of loyalty from leadership. It's the quiet, devastating realization of, my leader isn't in my corner. They don't see my future. They won't fight for my growth. I'm a task completer, not a person being invested in. So what do? They leave. And it's not a Jerry Maguire, who's coming with me, blaze of dramatic glory, but rather in a quiet, determined search for a place where they might be seen. This is the voluntary, preventable hemorrhage. You're hemorrhaging talent, priceless intellectual property, and the fragile morale of the team they left behind. That 75% statistic isn't a fact about them. It's a report card on us, the leaders. It's the clearest measure we have of the loyalty we failed to build. Now, the powerful upside here, this is the good stuff. LinkedIn's 2023 Global Talent Trends report shows that companies with high retention, which is basically the report card for loyalty, see a 43% lower cost in hiring and a 20% boost in productivity. Why is that? Well, my friends, it's simple. Loyal teams are stable teams. Stable teams have less churn drama, less constant retraining, and they build this deep, almost robotic-like organism that lets them solve complex problems at lightning speeds. They speak to each other in shorthand. They trust each other's instincts. They become more than the sum of their parts. But let's get to the real magic, the secret sauce. Research from Google's Project Aristotle found something transformative. In teams where there was a strong, tangible sense of loyalty and psychological safety, members were 58% more likely to go above and beyond. Now, I want to be crystal clear on what above and beyond means here. This isn't about logging overtime. It's about something far more powerful and elusive: the full voluntary activation of someone's discretionary genius. We're talking about the kind of creative problem-solving brain power you cannot mandate in a job description. You cannot purchase it with a bonus. You can only earn it, and then it shows up in ways that change everything. It's the engineer who, on their commute home, cracks the code that's been stumping the team for weeks. It's the marketing associate who hears a casual criticism of the project in the cafeteria, and instead of shrugging, steps in passionately to defend it because it's their team's work. It's someone seeing a clever solution in their weekend hobby and thinking, we could really use that here. This is the dividend. This 58% boost isn't just more effort, it's a qualitative upgrade in the very nature of the work. It's the difference between a group of people executing a plan and a crew of advocates who are personally, emotionally invested in the outcome. That's the strategic advantage that no competitor can easily copy because it's built not on perks, but on foundation of genuine earned loyalty. So let's make this practical. If you're a leader who's pragmatic, you're perpetually busy, and currently feeling like you're just trying to keep your head above water, well, this is for you. The shift is simple but profound. You move from passive goodwill to active, visible advocacy. No more hoping they feel supported. You show them in unmistakable, consistent ways. It's about moving from being a supervisor to being a sponsor. And here's some concrete, actionable strategies that you can implement immediately with a deeper look at how and the why. So the first strategy is the public defense private critique protocol. Think of this as leadership judo. It's about using the momentum of a public challenge to flip the situation into an unbreakable bond of trust. This is arguably the single most powerful trust builder you can practice, and it requires a level of integrity that's borderline brutal because your instinct will be to protect yourself. The ironclad rule is non-negotiable. You defend your people in public, you critique, coach, and correct in private. Full stop. No exceptions, no ifs, ands, or buts, even when you're frustrated, even when they did mess up. You critique, coach, and correct in private. So let's paint the all too familiar picture. Your team's project hits a snag during a high-stakes, cross-functional meeting. Tensions are high. A peer from another department points a finger and says, well, this delay is because Scott's team dropped the ball on the data. Now you have a split-second choice. In that moment, everyone is watching you, your team, your peers, your own bosses. They're all waiting to see where your loyalty lies. The disloyal and tragically most common response is to throw your team under the bus to preserve your own social capital. Yeah, I was furious when I saw that. I'll talk to them and get it sorted out. It's a betrayal that echoes. It tells your team, when the heat is on, you're expendable. My reputation is more important than our unity. Now, the loyal, advocating response is to stand up and own the space as the leader and say, I'm responsible for our team's output. We're all aligned that the goal is to solve this for the client, and we'll own driving the solution from here. Let's focus on the path forward. Do you notice what you did there? You didn't make excuses. You didn't escalate the blame. You didn't single out Mary. You simply became the shield. You absorbed the blow. Now, the critical non-negotiable follow-up here is then and only then, in the safety of your own team room, you have the detailed, blameless, but accountable conversation. Say something like, okay, team, in that room, I had your backs. In this room, we own our part. How did our process allow this to happen? What do we need to fix so it never happens again. Now, this is where the real work happens, but it can only happen after the safety is established. That public defense does one monumental thing. It builds an instant fortress of psychological safety. It broadcasts louder than any mission statement on the wall. It says, when the pressure is on and the wolves are at the door, I'm in here with you. We're a unit. Google's famed Project Aristotle found that psychological safety was the number one factor for high-performing teams. It's the oxygen that allows for risk-taking, radical honesty, and innovation. When you provide that safety, the private critique transforms. It's no longer a personal shaming session. It's a systems level fix among trusted allies. The trust is already cemented, so the focus can purely be on learning and improving. You're not attacking your crew, you're helping them fortify the ship. This is how you turn a moment of public failure into the single strongest deposit you'll ever make into your loyalty bank. Your team will remember who stood with them long after they've forgotten the details of the mistake. Now, strategy 2. This is the career path GPS conversation. Think of a talented person's career as a journey across uncharted waters. Loyalty doesn't just rust when people feel stuck. It actively combusts. It sinks when they realize their leader is more interested in guarding a convenient parking spot than helping them navigate towards their destination. The ultimate act of advocacy and the ultimate test of your confidence as a leader is to invest in someone's future with radical sincerity, even if the brightest future you can help them see might eventually lead them off your team and onto a bigger stage. Counterintuitively, this is the very thing that makes them want to stay and give their best right now. So shift the conversation entirely. This requires a fundamental rewrite of your standard one-on-one script. Move beyond the transactional, what's the status on X? Or what do you need from me? Instead, you must lead with two powerful open-ended questions that most employees never hear from their leader. One question is, what's a dream project or a skill that you have that you don't get to use here, but you're dying to flex? And another question, if you could design your ideal role here in 18 months with no constraints, budgets, or politics, what would it be and what would you be doing every day? Then your job is to shut up and listen. Truly listen. You're not just gathering data, you're downloading their personal map, their hopes, their latent talents, their hidden ambitions. Take notes, write it down. This conversation is gold. Become the architect and connector in chief. This is where you move from being a sympathetic listener to an active sponsor. Your role is to become a bridge builder, connecting the dots between their aspirations and the organization's needs. So for the skill builder, let's just say you've got someone that's interested in data visualization, but they never get to do it. Connect them with the analytics team. Let them be a part of their next project kickoff. Maybe they'll get a small piece of the visualization work. For the person who's a project craver, let them lead a client-facing initiative. Be their backstop. Coach them through the client meetings. Be in the background and help them prep. For the role shifter, if you've got someone that loves marketing and product, that's a powerful combination. Don't wait for a job opening. Set them up on a monthly tour for them to sit in with the product team for a day. And when the opportunity arises, they will be the obvious candidate. This strategy does something profound. It decouples a person's value from their current job description. You're demonstrating through action that your loyalty is to them as a human being with potential, not just their output as a functionary. You're signaling, I'm invested in you, not just what you can do for me. This creates a powerful bond of gratitude. And the data screams that it works. Gartner research shows that employees who feel supported in their career development and skill growth are 3.5 times more likely to be high performers and a striking 70% more likely to stay with the company for a long haul. People simply do not leave a leader who is their most visible, active, and effective champion. They might outgrow a role, but they will fight to find a way to stay in your orbit, in your network, because you've proven you see the destination on their map and are willing to help them navigate towards it. Now, the third strategy is the blame process, not people, post-mortem. So when a project fails or a costly mistake escalates, our primitive, panicked lizard brain instantly wants a villain. It screams, whose fault is this? The loyal leader does something radically different. They silence that instinct and instead go looking for a faulty system. You're not a prosecutor building a case. You're a forensic engineer examining a breakdown to ensure it never happens again. Your goal isn't to punish, but to inoculate. So the script and the ritual here requires a deliberate, almost ritualistic approach to failure. In your debrief, you must literally ban the word who. Start by framing the entire incident as a system failure. So set the tone. All right, team, our process failed us today. Let's reverse engineer it together, not to point fingers, but to rebuild a better one. Our goal is to make our system so robust that this mistake could never happen again, even if we tried. Then guide the investigation with neutral, system-focused questions. Have them written down if you need to. Questions like, walk me through the workflow, step by step. Where did reality first deviate from the plan? Focus on the step, not the person at the step. Another question is, where was the handoff fuzzy? What did we assume was communicated that wasn't? This targets communication protocols, not individuals. Another question, what tool or checklist or software let us down? What information did we need but not have at the point of decision? This examines resource and information flow. And finally, if we could build one safeguard to prevent this, what would it be? This turns the team into solution architects. This disciplined approach does two revolutionary things that transform your team's culture and loyalty. First, it builds an early warning system. By decoupling making a mistake from being a mistake, you create psychological safety at the most critical moment, after something has gone wrong. When people know a slip-up will trigger a constructive system review, not a personal inquisition, they report problems early. When they're small and cheap to fix, they become proactive sentinels. A study published in Personal Psychology found that in teams with high psychological safety, members were far less likely to hide errors and more likely to engage in proactive problem solving. turning potential disasters into mere learning opportunities. Some data suggests this can reduce repeat errors by up to 65%. Second, and most crucially for loyalty, it's the ultimate act of advocating for your team's fundamental competence. You're broadcasting through your actions, I believe you are capable, intelligent, well-intentioned people. Something in the machinery around you broke, and that's what we're going to fix together. You're standing with them against the chaos of flawed processes, not standing over them as judge and jury. This builds a fierce, reciprocal loyalty. Your team sees that when things go wrong, the very moment that define most leaders, you didn't retreat into blame. You rolled up your sleeves and helped them fortify the system. You prove that your loyalty isn't conditional on flawless performance. It's a permanent commitment to their growth and success, especially when the stakes are highest and the pressure is on. They will walk through walls for a leader who has their back in the storm. Now let's tie this anchor down. The L in HELM is loyalty as earned capital. Humility earns you the right to be heard. Empathy gives you the intelligence to know what your team truly needs. And loyalty is the courageous action you take to fight for those needs, to defend their space and invest in their future. Without this, you're a temporary manager of transactions. But with it, you become a leader of a tribe, a group of people who will follow you into the difficult, messy, glorious work because they know in their bones that you're not just pointing the way, you're walking the path with them. So your mission this week, should you choose to accept it, and I really hope you do, is to make one unambiguous, bold deposit into the loyalty bank. Practice the public defense. The very next time your team's work is questioned in a meeting, in an email thread, be the buffer. Take the heat. Use the phrase, I'm responsible for my team. Then feel the shift. Notice how the private conversations about fixing the problem becomes more open, more collaborative, because you've already proven the team's safety is your priority. Watch how their shoulders relax, how their eyes engage. This is how anchors are forged, not in a single grand gesture, but in a consistent, unmistakable pattern of advocacy. I'm your co-pilot in this. I want to hear how it goes. Did the public defense change the dynamic? Did the private fix-it conversation feel different? Share your stories of earned loyalty with the crew. Send your dispatch directly to me at scott@leadwithhelm.com. Now on our next episode, we set our sights on the final letter of HELM, and that's M, and that means mission driven. We'll discover how to move from a team that's loyal to you to a crew that's radically, passionately committed to a purpose bigger than any one person. It's the final powerful piece of the puzzle. Until then, remember, keep engaging and keep inspiring. Take care.